In this video, I'll discuss how I'm using the course content to help me empower others in my school and how I think about succession planning, performance and talent management. I'll explore how my knowledge of organisational frames have helped me grow as a leader and how I want to help support my school as it grows and develops as a learning organisation. As we know from Peter Senge, a learning organisation is one that is defined as always refining itself to be more effective in achieving its goals. Senge also explains that we can reflect on the different stages of our development by looking at certain disciplines. Marrying this with Bowman and Deal's organisational frames will allow me to explore how my school can move forward in its development. While some aspects of a learning organisation may be visible in my school, it's only just at the developing stage and it's not consistent in its routines yet. As a middle leader, I hope to closely work with other people in my school to help develop routines. I think this is especially important in international schools because of their transient nature. So, let's put 20 minutes on the clock. Let's get going. My school's infancy, along with its location and the culture of the local community, mean it is faced with significant challenges. Fujairah is a developing emirate on the east coast of the UAE. Compared with the more populated and diverse emirates on the west coast, like Dubai and Abu Dhabi, being in Fujairah means our school has a very high percentage of Emirati students who speak little to no English. Being in Fujairah also means that there are fewer opportunities for sharing best practice between schools and for quality CPD to be delivered. Two things in particular have been intrinsic to my learning this year. Number one, this course, and number two, the unique culture of my school. Immersing myself in an educational leadership course while being a leader in a new school in Fujairah has been fascinating for many reasons. Firstly, while studying theories surrounding organisational change and the development of organisations, I've been working at a new school that is not yet where it wants to be, or indeed where it should be. Thinking about the ways in which improvements can be made in my current context is very interesting and is helping me reflect on my practice all the time. In assignment 3, I touched upon the idea of organisations functioning at different stages in their development and the influence that leadership behaviour can have on a school. Ellinger's ideas have parallels with Senge's 5 disciplines of a learning organisation, the importance of which is demonstrated by Walnut, Lowy and Redding, Johnson and Sugarman. In my current context, we have not yet fully established these fundamental disciplines. This, I believe, is hindering our progress and development as a school. Let's have a look at some of them. Systems thinking, where we address and examine the whole organisation, not just the individual parts. This is not happening in my current school. One example of this is the school transport system. Because of the limited school buses, the younger children in EYFS are required to leave school and go home much earlier so that the buses can take them home and return back to school to pick up the other children to take home. Relying on school transport this way severely impacts the younger students' education, as they are spending substantially less time in school than they should be. Mental models. Senge calls these deeply ingrained assumptions and generalizations. All members of an organisation have these, and they influence how we act and how we reflect on things. I try and reflect on my own assumptions and generalizations before acting or reacting to anything that goes on around me, as I'm sometimes a little bit guilty of reacting in different ways depending on my disposition at the time. Being consistent in how I act or react is imperative if I'm to continue to be effective as a leader in my school. Shared vision. Senge says that with vision, people excel and learn, not because they are told, but because they want to. Currently in my school, people do things because they're told, not because they want to. There is little individual initiative. Using the GROW model to promote a shared vision while promoting self-development and personal mastery has been a great step forward for us over the last few months. Personal mastery. The GROW model, first published by Whitmore in 1992, is a coaching strategy that allows people to identify their goals, their reality, their options, and their ways forward through regular dialogue. Lots of the dialogue in our weekly coaching sessions focuses on how we can develop the school's vision and why. Promoting that initiative is fundamental for people's individual development, and it has worked really well so far. Continually clarifying and strengthening our personal vision and our values has been really important in ensuring that the best education is available to our students. Team learning, where the process of aligning and developing teams creates results that benefit both the organisation and the individuals within it. There are 3 key components to Senge's team learning discipline. The first 2 are especially relevant and linked to ideas on transparency, which I'll talk about shortly. Teams must probe and explore complex issues, drawing on the talents, knowledge, and experiences of everyone. Number 2, people must work together. They must coordinate their efforts and communicate openly. Having trust with one another is super important because we're relying on each other all the time. Taggart expands upon Senge's 5 disciplines in his paper From Individual to Organisational Learning. For an organisation to grow and develop and to be effective, it's necessary that conflict be present and open. Disagreements and discussions about how to solve conflict is what helps teams learn. The different departments and teams in my school don't know how to use disagreements productively. Because of this, constructive conflict becomes something that is regressive instead of progressive. In my school, when a member of staff leaves, which is a regular occurrence, the reason is not reflected upon professionally to avoid more staff leaving for the same reasons, which then happens. As Sanjay puts it, the difference between good and bad leadership teams is in how they manage conflict, how they deal with defensiveness. He conveys that leaders are experts at pretending to know exactly what's going on, even when that's not the case. Many authors support Sanjay when he says that this is wrong. There is no room for pretending to know what the solution is in any organisation. This is where discussions, debates and transparency become really valuable. Taggart says when leaders internalise these ideas that they should know everything, they create 2 problems. First, they maintain the belief that they have all the answers and they shut themselves away from inquiry. Secondly, they refuse to consider alternative views other than their own. Recently, we were discussing the format of the end-of-term reports that go out to parents. The principal had created a draft and shared it with the school SLT and CPT to check before finalising. Concerns were raised in this meeting about the complexity and the usefulness of the report's format, but these concerns were not acknowledged and the reports went out anyway. A week later, the school and its staff were then battling to explain to parents who were really confused, and they were bombarding the school with questions and concerns. In many schools I've worked in, this lack of systems thinking is evident from all leaders. I'm also guilty myself. In attempting to help things run smoothly, I will sometimes assume control of something that I may not be 100% sure about, to make others feel better or for them not to worry, when in fact it would be much more beneficial to ask for support and get others involved in the development of a solution. There are many examples of this, but most recently we've been having issues with SIMS, which is a Student Information Management System. One of my roles as a leader of data requires me to analyse pupil progress and assessment data across the school. With training on the assessment side completed, I was able to set up tracking systems and analysis models that staff would be able to use. However, as time went on, my responsibilities and workload expanded. I continued to juggle between this, running the maths department in the primary and the secondary school, teaching full-time, and leading coaching sessions around the school. I wanted to avoid looking like I was struggling, or that I was unable to do the job that I was doing. It took me a while to realise that I should and I could ask for help and support, and even empower others in doing so. Within large organisations, empowering others can be really tough. As a leader, I've come to this realisation, as many others have before me. In 1989, Conger stated that to empower someone to achieve something so that you can strategically plan for their success along with their well-being, you have to know them. In the scenario I just mentioned, I wasn't aware of the roles of people who could help. I had to make it my business to understand who I could approach for support and how to make them feel empowered and valued when they were helping. For me to be able to empower others, it was important for me to address concerns surrounding the lack of 2 things that Praskia in 2017 say are important things in school: co-participation and co-creation. As mentioned in the previous assignment, my school's organisational development is being adversely affected by a lack of opportunity and the lack of time to work with others effectively. I believe that the larger the school is, the more difficult this is. In 1998, this possibly inspired Burns to study the relationship between empowerment and levels of engagement within organisations. He found that empowering others makes them feel valued and more engaged in the work that they do. In my current context, some achievements have included involving staff in discussions about resources and books for next year, something that didn't happen last year, and by providing a model of how myself and other leaders were going to prepare and use these resources to develop our medium-term plans for next year. We felt we empowered others to do the same by modelling the expectations clearly, and hopefully have already begun to raise the quality of teaching and learning for next year. By doing this collaboratively and with plenty of notice, it provided opportunities for people to discuss ideas with each other and for them to evaluate the quality of their plans. I really appreciate Delino, Uckel and Hickman's perspective about honesty and authenticity too. When I've not been honest about my intentions, or when my vision of what should and can be achieved is not authentic or honest, my efforts to empower others have failed. One example of this is when leaders were asked to enforce a complex marking policy that was designed for the secondary school across the primary school. Because the primary team and I didn't believe that this was the right marking policy for our teachers and younger students, I was ineffective in sharing the expectations effectively and was unable to enforce it, thus leading to a variance in the quality of marking across the school. With reference to Simon Sinek in 2009 and his golden circle principle, I have to be certain about why we're doing something. He repeatedly states it's not what we do, but it's why we do it. When I ask or suggest that staff do something, I always try to demonstrate a clear reason why, to allow them to understand the value that it has on the organisation and for themselves. When reflecting on the time I've spent so far in Fujairah, in a large new international school, when it comes to staff turnover, it's not dissimilar to other schools in the area, where nearly all have low rates of staff retention. Many staff here are transitory, whether intending to be or not. Even in my case, my long-term plans, while not fully realised yet, probably don't involve staying in Fujairah. Like others, this is because of many things, such as the culture, the climate, and the location of both the school and, of course, the city of Fujairah. Itself. Because staff transience is a well-known issue in the world of international schools, it's been really enlightening to learn more about succession planning and relating it to my context, both present and future contexts. Catherine says that international schools can be isolated from their local community due to limited social opportunities, language barriers, and more. Tied to this, in 2005, Robert's study found that a routine of conflict, stress, and Machiavellian troubleshooting in international schools affected staff happiness and in turn affected the rate of staff retention. This assignment has come at a perfect time to comment and reflect on something that has just happened at my school. It involves one of our very valuable members of support staff who has left to begin a new job at short notice. Because we do not have an effective distributed leadership model at the moment, and the full list of his responsibilities was not clear, there was no one who could comfortably take over the role. Some of the responsibilities have been shared among existing staff, most of whom do not have training or prior experience for the responsibilities that they've been asked to take over. And as such, some operational aspects of the school are beginning to crumble. This has inspired me to assess my own strengths and weaknesses, realizing how to plan for my own succession appropriately. But more importantly, how do I plan for a member of my team leaving and being replaced? By ensuring easy to follow consistent routines and policies are in place is vital, followed by clear paths of communication to avoid any new staff becoming confused or jaded. As far as staff succession goes, much of what I currently observe is based on trial and error, which studies by Woolner, Lowy and Reddin in 1995 suggest is fine if it works for the organisation and it is able to continue running smoothly. However, it seems that retaining and attaining new talent is something that we must improve because things don't run smoothly when people leave in Fujairah. Van Velsen and Macaulay understand that understanding and developing the value of our team is important, and this is where our school culture becomes really important. Collaboration is noted as one of the most important factors to a school's success. Both Leetswood and Jancy and Little found reducing teacher isolation is a major way to strengthen school culture. In their study, they looked at a number of school leaders who create opportunities for staff to interact and influence one another. They looked at leaders who are creating time for joint planning, asking staff to offer workshops to colleagues, encouraging teachers to visit other classes, and holding staff retreats. During team meetings, I want to embrace a collaborative approach. I'm aware that barriers to self-development can be self-imposed by the individual. So there is an expectation that we work together to achieve what we need to avoid procrastination and self-defeat if we find something challenging, whether it be marking a certain piece of work from a particular student or planning a quality sequence of lessons. At these team meetings, as well as assemblies, I'm working on a regular schedule where we can celebrate and publicly recognise the work of both staff and students, generating a sense of pride, developing staff and student morale, and creating some kind of symbolic value. In 1989, Rosenholz found that in quantitatively successful schools, leaders invited others to share in the success of their colleagues. Principals also wrote private notes to staff expressing appreciation for special efforts. While I'm not a principal, I've always tried out this idea in my previous roles and in my current role. Now and again, I'll bring in a pack of cakes or muffins or a chocolate bar or something and leave it in one of my team members' classrooms with a little thank you note to express my gratitude for what they've done. Little states that these symbolic actions demonstrate to individuals the value attached to some practices by others and raises the likelihood of them happening again. In building a culture based around collaboration, according to Rosenholz's research, if I continue these symbolic acts, it will increase the chance that leaders will feel safe in revealing their work to others. And this promotes a sense of autonomous collaboration and hopefully higher levels of competency. Competency is defined as an underlying characteristic of an individual that is causally related to effective or even superior performance in a job. While many authors have found that individuals' competence has a strong correlation with organisational success, Carroll, Levy and Richmond in 2008 say that our own personal development is benefited when talking about our own and others' competencies openly, something that is encouraged in our coaching sessions via the GROW model. Research suggests that it's impractical to always be telling staff about new ideas and telling them things. Even more so, it's impractical to be explicitly going over it again and again verbally. Instead, opportunities should be created to allow staff to be part of something new, and simply exploring what's going on around them is valuable learning. In learning from past experiences, I plan to manage a working environment that is conducive to everyone's self-development, providing opportunities for others to work with their peers and to allow the development of a collaborative culture where the responsibility for certain key aspects of an organisation do not always weigh heavily on just one person. In 1994, Hargreaves identified balkanised cultures being common in secondary schools, where department structures have collaboration within subgroups, but little or no collaboration across the wider community of the school. There are also contrived cultures where interaction between colleagues is mandated or directed, where people would not normally interact with each other. However, while a balkanised culture is somewhat prevalent in my current school, it is further complicated by the number of teachers who work across a number of different departments, even some working in both the primary and the secondary schools. This complicates everything from teaching, meetings, planning, timings, communication, and so much more. For example, there may be an English meeting scheduled, but some staff may be required to attend a maths meeting instead, or a humanities meeting, or even all three. So they can't be in a number of places at the same time. To attempt to sort this issue for next year, I would have primarily looked at Bolman and Deal's structural frame. However, with the learning and knowledge that I've acquired, I know that it's not that simple, and I feel a bit more informed now to be able to suggest options for solutions by looking through additional frames. For example, simply assigning staff to individual departments and ensuring there is minimal overlap is all well and good, but there are political and human resource reasons for this not having happened already. Currently, as a school with just under 1,000 students, we are prevented from hiring the number of staff needed to create and maintain an effective and safe school environment. Hence, approaching the issue from a political, HR and structural point of view is necessary to see all sides of the issue. By recognising it as a political issue first, we know that we are inhibited from hiring more staff because of the number of children enrolled in the school. Then, by looking through a HR frame, we get an understanding of staff and their symbiotic relationship with the school. The school wants staff to do well, yet have them stretched across multiple departments, where they are physically unable to do their best, even if they wanted to. By not doing their best, the quality of teaching and learning is suffering, and the school is failing to recruit the number of new students that it needs. By looking through the different frames, it is clear there is no way of solving the issue immediately. And what was on the surface a simple structural issue is now something that is infinitely more complex. We have a long way to go in my current school, but I'm hopeful that in applying what I've learned from this course and by reflecting on past experiences, I can help promote a long-term solution for the many issues that still need addressing in order to provide the best learning experience for the students and the staff at my school. A lot of this comes down to the issues highlighted in Assignment 3 in my action plan, and how the leaders communicate and manage time wisely to help allow staff to meet the expectations that have been set. When Hung and Chen in 2001 talk about sustainable infrastructure, they encourage all organisations to have systems in place that encourage everyone within the community to share their knowledge and understanding. With regards to the conflicting timings and different people working in different departments, Nunaka and Teikuchi, Pemberton and Stonehouse and Ellinger state that without prescience and some strategy, the fundamental infrastructure of any organisation is at risk. Though at the moment I don't have all the answers, I've learned that if we begin to collaborate I've learned that if we begin to collaborate openly and consider our issues through different frames, we may be able to raise our school to a level where we celebrate success and where we learn from previous mistakes, actively supporting the development of our school as a learning organisation. Thank you.